but it is crazy how music can work in such a cathartic fashion, and how it is that when we are sad, we want to listen to even sadder music, and that makes us happier. It's funny how we work.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time at the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Here in my heart an endless sorrow.
Mr. Ville Valo, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. We are on the final stretch for the release of your solo album, and that means that you are now extremely busy and have to talk to people over and over and over again about the record. You've shared before that you wouldn't necessarily describe yourself as a people person. Does that mean that this is like the worst part of your life right now, or is there some level of excitement about analysis of your art?
Oh, what a question. Yeah, good morning to you too. Yeah,
no time to waste. Come on.
I know exactly what you mean. I think I don't mind people, but I prefer quantity over quality over quantity. So at least I have to write this whole pandemic wave, because I was one of the people that got just locked in and not really doing anything outside of my own little house, my own little studio. So I became sort of like allergic or to the human species, while doing it. So it takes me a while to get acclimated. Once again, I only flew abroad recently after many, many years. So man, it felt weird to be at airports. So much meat, so many people around. It was weird, but I'm getting used to it. And then again, I'm super happy that there seems to be quite an interest on the forthcoming album, which is not something you can take for granted. So it's quite special after all these years, and there was quite a break in between. So nice that people absence made the heart grow fonder, as they say.
Two heartbeats out of sync with each other and cry.
Very different experience from back in. I got to know you back in the day with Razorblade Romance. I think that's when I saw you live for the first time at the Rockwerchter Festival in Belgium, like 24 years ago or something like that. At that time, with that album, all of a sudden it went very fast. And all of a sudden there was a lot of demand for you guys. With the next album, all of a sudden the UK broke for you guys as well. And that was quite the ride for you and the band at that point. Going through that whole crazy cycle and the 20 years that followed that, is that putting you today in a better place to take that step back and appreciate that more, the interest that is still there and how that is going today?
Oh man, these things are very complicated, you say. It's I should drink more coffee. I think it helps that I do have a history, and it helps that it's not the first time of this being involved in this particular rodeo. But then again, there's a lot of firsts. It is my first solo thing. It's the first time I've ever produced, recorded, and performed a whole album by myself, which is quite a mad task to take upon on yourself. But can't help for being such a fan of Prince, for example. And I thought that he did a lot of stuff solo proper, and the stuff was very unique, and it came from a very, very unique perspective and all that. So I thought that I can always blame it on Prince if people don't like the album. So I'm a good company when it comes to that. But yeah, things happened really fast back in the day. It was I think it was my main companions then were cigarettes and alcohol, and they helped me out quite a bit, for quite a few years until they didn't. And then I like relearn how to be a rock and roller without clutching to that bottle of wine or whatever. But yeah, it's an odd, like, parallel universe feeling, because I do have that history, and there's a history with my previous band, and but yet I feel like losing my virginity the second time or whatever.
That's
it's
scary.
No, well, it is an experience, I can tell you that.
There you go.
So then I just have a bad memory. But yeah, so it's an exciting place to be in time, and I think that all of this becomes real when I actually hold the album in my hands. It's at the pressing plant now. So I'm hoping to do so in not many days, and actually then to play our first gigs on the day of on January 13th when the album was come out. We're playing that weekend over at a club here in Helsinki. So I think that's the moment when it all starts to sort of like feel real, and then the butterflies will come back again, the size of T-Rex and all that stuff, which is part for the course. You know, it's an important part of what we do. You have to be excited. You have to be a bit nervous. Otherwise, it will. You know, I don't want it to turn into a chore or to a job or to repeat. Sure. So it's a complicated equation. And as you said, I'm right on the verge of it becoming real and it turning into this sort of daydream of a fantasy. You know, I was working on for the past, since 2019.
Two heartbeats out of sync with each other and cry.
Let's be honest, a lot of people, when they think about the band H.I.M, they were thinking about you. You were very much you were the frontman of that band, and a lot of the attention came directly to you. Now this is more of a choice versus the situation that unfolded. With taking all this on, and a bit of a cliche question maybe, but is there what was a key lesson for you, or something that you discovered about yourself that was brand new for you even after all these years?
The intense enjoyment of music while it's being created. A lot of times when you have a band, there's a lot of conversations to be had. There's a lot of scheduling to be done. There's a lot of phone calls with people at record companies and management and so forth. That's all. It's part of what we do. I'm not complaining about that at all. But this time around, because I was in complete solitude and I didn't have to verbally converse with anybody. I was able to just follow the instinct, and through that sort of fall into this meditative state that lasted more or less for 2.5 years. It was quite intense and quite weird at times, but I've never been able to get so many goosebumps while working on my own music, and get so sort of like all of a sudden waking up from a trance and realizing that you have like drool dripping from the side of your mouth, that you're so into it. And that's really special. That's really something I think I've never experienced in the past. Okay. So not to say that recording albums with him weren't intense, but the intensity was different, and it was a communal effort, and it was more, and also the camaraderie changes quite a bit. It's more joking, it's more jovial, as opposed to me being all super serious about all the tiniest little nitty-gritty of recording again. So it was quite a difference, and exactly what you said about the new things, finding out new things or new tricks for such an old dog. I think the important thing is to be forcing yourself to find those new aspects and those new perspective, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense to do just the same old. We always try to find out new avenues with him as well, and of course there are things one cannot change about their identity, and especially musical identity. And I'm a sucker for melancholy songs, and I'm still can't decide whether I should wear my Black Sabbath t-shirt or my Depeche Mode t-shirt, so I'm trying to wear them both, and ends up me finding myself in somewhere in between, musically speaking. And that's, I think, something that's followed me since the 90s. So I think that there's way more similarities with NEON NOIR and with the stuff from the past than there are dissimilarities, and I find that endearing. I find that kind of cool that that this particular zebra cannot change its stripes.
Two heartbeats out of sync with each other and cry.
One of your fans here in Canada, a friend of mine called Tabitha, when she found out that I was going to interview you, her question was top of mind based on the new music is there for you that one key inspiration or influence when making this record that people would not expect from you?
That's a good question. I'm trying to figure out, because normally when working in music, you're just trying to be sort of like keep your antennas up and ready to go, and you can't, at least I can't force an album to happen or a song to happen. You have to experience a certain amount of things for the brain to suck it all in, become this melting pot, and sort of like via this odd defragmentation to spit it all out in melodies and rhythms. And it's it has happened to me several times in the past. So, but it's always a bit daunting whether it will not happen this time around. So it feels like every song is a kind of swan song, and because it is like that, it's quite intense and it's quite sensitive and it's quite even dangerous, emotionally speaking. At least, there's no outside influence that would affect the outcome so much, because it's so much more personal. You know, it's impossible to say that there would be one Netflix series or one or an album. Or I think it's more about the fact that the inspiration came from the fact that I didn't need to restrict myself at all. So I was able to sort of like feverishly jump into all my musical perversions, all the 80s stuff, and I was listening to a lot of Chameleons and getting back to Sisters of Mercy, really blasting it on vinyl, and then, you know, as we do, paying homage, you know, aka stealing the best bits, it's bit by bit. So I think it was more about maybe bringing in the fandom or the fanboyness, if you can call it that, into the equation. So having fun with it and not taking the whole process too seriously. It's always been the same. It always comes from the same places in the heart, and I think the overall, the sort of like the tangent I'm always keep on, you know, the sort of Finnish melancholy is something very ingrained, maybe even genetic. It's something I can't get rid of. It's something I can tend to, but I can't really make it do anything new, whether it's good or bad. But I think that's about the identity as well.
You wanna dream what I dream. Don't close your eyes if you wanna feel what I feel.
Very dark elements have always flowed through your music, suicide being one of them. The hopeful irony is that at the same time, this very ardent base of fans, the fanboys of your music, fangirls of your music, many of them, I know several people that would say that your music helped them lift up from those dark areas and not make them go to certain very dark areas. There's a real interesting irony there. How do you experience that? Because you channel some very dark, sure, you talk about Depeche Mode and Prince, and there are some more quote-unquote upbeat songs, but if we actually will, read the lyrics, they're not necessarily Aqua's Barbie Girl. What's that like for you, creating art that is so dark, but at the same time so uplifting?
That really tell you about being Belgian. Aqua Girl thing. Oh man.
Sorry, didn't mean to bring that up.
No. But it used to be it was a huge hit here in Finland as well. You couldn't get rid of it at that time. It was massive, and that's actually just the reason to write music like Join Me in Death. You need a contradiction. You need a balancing act. Otherwise the balance between good and evil, it won't just be right. You need a bit of art for everybody's look. So it's a fine line. But I think that stuff basically. It comes from the heart. It's the stuff I'm still questioning. It's about trying to figure out when to hold on and when to let go, and when letting go is less of an egocentric decision to make and more based out of love. But once you have let go, there's no going back. So I think it's that sort of like the dream-like, and it's not talking about life and death all the time. It's about important things, the things that you feel that in your tummy. The sort of like that pang or whatever you want to call it. It's always there, and I'm still questioning that stuff. It was the same on the NEON NOIR stuff. There was a lot of like love letting and songs that are themselves not sort of sure, on which side. I love being able to send mixed messages, and to have one sentence say the other and the other, because that's how we are as people. I think people are quite indecisive, especially when it concerns the matters of the heart. But it is crazy how music can work in such a cathartic fashion, and how it is that when we are sad, we want to listen to even sadder music, and that makes us happier. It's funny how we work in that fashion, but that's how music has always been for me.
If you wanna see what I see, go on and close your eyes. If you wanna feel.
And I think music is always also an easier way to deal with very, very deep and even dark emotions. It's sort of like it's like a viral thing. It travels so easy, and you don't have to think about it when you're singing and when you're emoting. The music has this way of sort of like infiltrating your, so at least subconscious, but conscious as well, and taking over for that wee bit. And I think that through that, the catharsis might happen, and that is an unbelievable power of music. But I never. I am a bit of a drama king, and I am a self-confessed romantic, and so for me, that is the stuff that makes the most sense. It has to be pompous and it has to be Wagnerian to a certain extent. That's what makes my boat rock, you know. Yeah. It's a complex topic because we're also talking about states of mind that can be very sensitive, and we all experience realities in different ways. And music is the one thing that does bring people in similar states of mind together, even though they don't know each other. They can still feel kinship.
We talked briefly earlier about we went very fast in the late 90s, early 2000s, and funnily enough, at that point, you sometimes were grouped in with the whole, there's this new wave of new metal going around in the world, and so on. Now, fast forward 20 years later, we've got the Sick New World Festival coming up, which is the ultimate reunion show, if you will, of that scene. You're gonna be part of that as well. Kind of weird to be considered part of the same group of bands with the Korns and the Deftones and the Systems of a Downs of this world, or is that something that has never really been a thing for you?
Well, then again, in hindsight, I remember when all those bands were huge, when they were the biggest thing on the planet. It felt a bit different, talking about nu metal or whatever it was. But if you're thinking in hindsight, you think about, let's say, Deftones, Korn, and System of a Down. That trio is not too far of the trio of, let's say, Jane's Addiction, Faith No More, and maybe late Bad Brains. They're sort of like alternative rock, bands trying to do things differently. Of course, they shared similarities, but those bands are so different from each other. And Deftones especially, they were huge when Around the Fur came out, and that was we still had CD jukeboxes at the rock bars, and that was the stuff we played 24/7. So yeah, the lineup is looking great. There's so many bands I want to see myself. Killing Joke, a great live. Just Coleman is one of my heroes. The Sisters of Mercy, I haven't seen in many, many years. There's also
with the amount of smoke they use on the scene, you might not see them.
Yeah, I know. You're not sure. They could actually have several Sisters of Mercy touring at the same time. It's like Boney M of Gothic Rock, so perfectly. But the lineup's looking crazy. It's Monster Magnet as well. A lot of bands I grew up listening to, and a lot of like She Wants Revenge. I didn't know that they're around, so that's quite cool as well. And I thought that they ended the thing many a moon ago. But what do I know?
What a wicked game to play to make me feel this way.
There's a few festivals in Germany as well, like Metaluna and those sorts of like darker rock festivals, and those are the few moments in life of a melancholy Finnish man that you can feel as you're a part of something. Feel very familiar. It's quite special. I think the Vegas thing would be cool because all the American festivals have been quite different. They're quite, the way they're set up are very different from European festivals. We did a thing, Project Revolution, Linkin Park's festival back in the day, and it was a lot of amphitheaters, and it was the whole setup, the whole vibe was very different from a let's say Roskilde or Växjö. Where the area is massive, where you travel, you can walk for half an hour to get to a stage, and there's all sorts of different kinds of music happening. And Vegas is cool to sort of like end the tour with. That's happening right after our club dates. I think the last ones in New York City were playing Irving Plaza. So it's great to be able to do that festival, and and hopefully get some time to enjoy the bands as well.
You have shared many times, or at least a couple of times recently even, that family is so important for you. And you've also mentioned, if I one day am blessed with my own family and so on, looking back, now that we're talking about 1986, where your rock star journey started, is that the unfortunately necessary and biggest sacrifice you've ever made? That for 25 to 30 years, you've been full steam ahead and looking at channeling this art, and that it has taken away time from other elements in your life?
I don't think it's a sacrifice. It's a decision I've made, and I have to live by it. The funny thing is that not all dads have to be there. So I could have been a dad, or there could be a family, but I don't think that it would be fair. I would like to be there for if I'm blessed with any children in the future and a wife and all that. Well, it remains to be seen. But I think this album and the next album, not the next album, but next year is important to me, mostly because of egocentric reasons. So I'm asking my girlfriend to give me a chance and understand me a bit. So I need to make this track because I think it's emotionally and intellectually and spiritually, it's an important thing for me to do, to finish this chapter and then see what happens next. But yeah, I haven't been really thinking about that. You just go full steam and making plans is for suckers, as they say in some 80s like comedy or whatever. It's just and especially making plan Bs is you just go with the flow, and you just take whatever comes and try to manage, survive somehow with it through it all. It's worked out fine so far. Well, it remains to be seen if it's going to be a dead end or not. But whatever, I'm taking the risk, and I like the little sense of danger and the element of danger about it also. Yeah. I don't mind. These days, you mentioned Christmas, you mentioned the commerciality, and you mentioned there's like this innate need for people to experience so many things that they actually don't have the time for.
Right.
You cannot be standing on H volcano and taking selfies, and you cannot be in Bali and have kids at the same time and do this and do that and have a career as well, which is these days so very important. I think there's all these senses of joyous and life-changing experiences are so very fragmented. It seems that people are just doing the selfie and off they go to the next thing, and that's not really sucking the sunsets in and enjoying the vibes. And I think that, as they say about music, the pauses in between notes are usually more important than the notes, and I guess it's pretty close to that with life in general as well.
On that inspirational and motivational note, or pause in between the notes, we'll wrap it up, Ville, and thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate
you having me.
Some extra time as well. I very much enjoyed this conversation. I feel very, very fortunate that I was able to have a conversation with you about the new album and your journey.
It's all good. It's all good. And then I'm still working on extending touring later on after summertime, and hoping that we make it over to Canada as well, and working on different Australia and Southern America and Mexico and all that stuff. So I'm hoping that next year will be busy until the very end of the year, and there'll be a lot of more new adventures to go through, and a lot of more elements of danger, the ones we mentioned. So.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep our eyes open for any announcements, and if we just can't wait for that, then myself and other Canadians will just have to fly south or to Europe to see you on the road. Ville, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the very best in both the upcoming holiday season as well as the continued release cycle of your album.
Indeed. Have a wonderful day. The happiest of holidays to you too.
You are awesome.
awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.